Hey you guys, it's your girl Gabby G in NYC, and I'm back with part 2 of the timeline to purchasing. Okay, so we reviewed the whole beginning process in part 1, so please check that out. If you haven't seen it, stop right now and go check out part 1. But in part 2, we're just going to review the general steps towards completing a purchase in an apartment, like a co-op or condo. So now, my next set of steps. I also have my little drinky drink here, just in case I get a little parched. It's only water. Okay, so, all right, so applying for a mortgage. Our last step, let me just remind you, was the signing of the contract. Okay, and once that contract is signed by both parties, then we move on to the next step, which is applying for a mortgage. Now, I know you remember that I spoke about you talking to a mortgage broker and getting a pre-approval letter. Well, let me just say it, because I don't know if people are going to get offended or whatever, but pre-approval letters don't mean nothing, okay? I just want you to know. Really, banks are willing to give you the money, right? But when it comes down to it, and you really have to officially approve for a commitment letter from a bank, now that's the real deal. That's the real deal. Okay? So that typically takes anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. You're applying for a mortgage and receiving a commitment letter from the lender. Okay? So mortgage applications cannot be processed without a fully executed contract. So that's why that step happens first. So even though you get pre-approved, they looked it over, a little bit, and they're willing to give you this amount, but the real amount comes in later, especially after appraisals and all that stuff happens too. So, yeah, I just wanted to note that so that you really would keep that in mind. Pre-approvals are not everything, but the commitment letter to what you're actually going to be loaned it's everything. Okay. So, if an apartment is not being financed, like if you're able to pay all cash, that changes a lot of this process. So just keep that in mind. This is really focused on when you're financing. Okay, but your real estate agent is going to be able to work with you on this whole process. But then the next step in a co-op and a condo, like you have to prepare a sort of package, an application, right? So the board package, this typically is anywhere between 10 to 20 business days. Or it could be within 3 days of receiving your commitment letter from your lender, but pretty much almost all, and I'm going to read some of this, almost all apartment buildings are require a board approval before the closing date can even take place. So I just want you to know this stuff. Okay. This is important. All right. So, they're going to require a whole bunch of financial stuff. You're going to need full financial disclosure, net worth, especially when it comes to co-ops. They're very particular in knowing exactly what you make and what you bring to the table. I know it can be really intrusive, but at the end of the day, you'll be part of this kind of family. I feel like that's the benefit of a co-op. You're kind of connected, and you're just, you're involved with each other, and it's a community. That's really what it is. Condos, I mean, maybe that's, what you're looking for because you want way more freedom and you don't want to be connected and you don't want to be super close to people. That might be a thing, but keep in mind, condos are also way more expensive. So, you could watch my video on that too. There are major differences between the two. So anyway, they're going to need supporting documentation of your income, employment history, your current salary, personal and business references, tax returns, from the last 2 years, most recent tax returns, and your credit history. All of those things are going to need to be put on the table for in front of a board. Another thing, after you go through all of that, there's a whole bunch more. But if you're not financing, it could usually take like 2 to 4 weeks. But if you are, it takes a little longer. Okay, so you would have to gather all this information along with your real estate agent. They're really going to help you put together a really amazing board package, because that's important. It makes you look great, and there's some people who are just denied because they have a sucky package. Okay. So then you're going to submit the board package for the managing agent's review. What they're going to do is look through it, make sure it's complete, make sure you got everything that they asked for, make sure that it looks good, and then they are going to bring it before the board. Okay. So once the board members check all of that out, then they're going to determine if they want to meet you, if they want to have an interview. Okay. And just because you are scheduled for an interview does not mean that you have their approval. Okay. Just keep that in mind. You know, there are a lot of steps to this process, but if you're going for an interview, your real estate agent really should be prepping you for this and telling you all the things that you're going to need to know. They're going to ask you questions. What's your favorite color? What do you like? And sometimes they even want your dog or your cat or whatever animal you have stated on your whole application to come with you, because they want to make sure it's not a vicious thing. So they're going to want you both there, right? But again, it does not necessarily mean that you have an approval just because you have an interview. But it's another step in the process, so it's a good thing, okay? We want to take steps. We want to progress. So after that, you're going to meet with the co-op board for the interview. That's typically 30 minutes to an hour. You're going to want to make yourself available to when they can meet, which is typically a weekday, like in the evening. Because the board members are volunteers who just live in this building. So essentially they're just like me and you know, so it's not some corporate thing, you know, they live there and they just want to make sure that you gel and you fit with their community in the co-op. If it's a condo, now that's a little different. There's not usually the whole interview process and stuff, but they get to review your package, like your whole application and everything, to determine basically whether or not they have first right of refusal, which really is that one of the people who live within the building, they can buy, they have the first opportunity to purchase before an incoming tenant does, or owner really, because this is purchasing. So they just have the first right of refusal before they approve your application in a condo. Just so you know. All right. So then your real estate agent is going to prep you for all of this, that whole meeting with the board, and then you're going to receive approval from the board. Well, that's what we hope for. We don't want to be denied. But that takes anywhere between a day to a week after the board interview. And then there's going to be a scheduling for closing. Once you're approved, then it's going to be scheduled. So that can be 2 weeks after the board approval. That may be the timeline. But it can be even faster if you're doing all cash. So that's the typical timeline when it comes to purchasing a co-op or condo in New York City. And I hope that it got, that you understood it a little bit better than you did, or maybe you just learned something totally new. And if you have any questions or anything further that you would like to add, please comment, please share, please like, please subscribe. I'm so grateful for you coming to my channel and checking out my video. And I hope you learned something new today about the whole timeline towards purchasing. Very similar when it comes to a townhouse as well, a single family home. So this was more focused on condos and co-ops, but it's a similar process. There's just a lot of steps to go through, and your real estate agent is the one who's going to help you get through it, because ultimately we want to put you in the house of your dreams. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.